Was Dexter really just killing for survival? Or was he trying to say something? Today, we're going to uncover 12 hidden messages. Yes, actual messages you probably missed throughout Dexter. Messages that suggest he wasn't just covering his tracks. He was practically leaving breadcrumbs. And once you see them, you won't unsee them. And by the way, wait till number 9. It completely changes how you see the finale. Let's dive in. Let's start where the clues begin to stack up. Inside that tiny glass slide box that may have meant more than we ever realized. We all assumed the blood slides were trophies. Classic serial killer stuff, right? A ritualistic nod to his kills. But take a closer look. Dexter didn't just keep them, he cataloged them. Each slide was neatly labeled, indexed by victim, and stored with almost obsessive precision. That's not a trophy collection. That's documentation. A meticulous record, like a scientist preserving evidence or a man building a case file on himself. What if these slides weren't just about remembering the kills, but about telling a story? Because let's not forget, when Dokes discovered the box, it wasn't hidden behind biometric locks or buried in the Everglades. It was tucked inside an air conditioner, accessible, traceable, practically in plain sight. And this is Dexter Morgan we're talking about, a man who planned every detail, every alibi, every kill with surgical precision. He wanted it to be found. So here's the real question. Was the slide box Dexter's version of a diary? A secret he was waiting to be uncovered? Not by just anyone, but by someone who could finally decode him? And if so, was he really trying to hide who he was? Or was he begging, quietly, for someone to see him? Then let's zoom in on Dexter's kill list, because the pattern hidden there is anything but random. Look closely at who Dexter chooses to kill. Not random criminals, not even just bad guys. No, he targets child abusers, sexual predators, corrupt cops, women who poison vulnerable patients. These aren't just evil people, they're projections, echoes of his own deepest wounds. Think about it. Dexter was a child drenched in his mother's blood. His entire code, his entire psyche, was forged in that trauma. So what if the code of Harry wasn't just about channeling darkness? It was Dexter's roadmap for internal war. Every kill wasn't just punishment. It was an attempt to silence the chaos within himself. A man abused by life, exercising his demons through the blood of others. That changes the game. Suddenly, the kills aren't just about justice. They're about therapy. Each victim selected not just for their crimes, but for what they represent to him. So was he trying to rid the world of evil? Or was he trying to surgically remove pieces of his own darkness? One blood slide at a time? And if that's true, were those kills not confessions but cries for help? Was Dexter ever really in control? Or just a man lost in his own cleansing ritual, hoping someone might one day notice the pattern? Now, think about the plastic kill rooms. Every inch measured, every object wiped clean. The victim perfectly centered, lit like a subject in a gallery exhibit. This wasn't just about hygiene or forensics. This was theater. Controlled, choreographed, obsessive theater. Dexter didn't just kill, he performed. Think about it. The lighting, the symmetry, the ritualistic placement of tools. These weren't random habits. This was a stage, a space where Dexter stripped the world down to black and white. No gray areas, no moral confusion, just him, the code, and the condemned. But here's the twist. Maybe it wasn't about safety. Maybe it wasn't even about justice. Maybe it was about being seen, truly seen, for who he was, without judgment. Because in that room, Dexter wasn't hiding behind a smile, a lab coat, or a Miami Metro badge. He was raw, unfiltered, unmasked, and who was watching? United States. Every week, we tuned in. We watched the ritual. We understood the logic. We even rooted for him. So ask yourself, was Dexter creating a kill room or a confession booth? Was this theater for himself? Or a carefully staged message meant for us all along? Now let's talk about the very thing that made us trust him, Harry's code, and how Dexter twisted it into his most convincing disguise. We all know Harry's code. Only kill the guilty, never get caught, channel the darkness into something useful. It sounds noble, even structured, like Dexter was clinging to some moral framework in the middle of chaos. But let's be honest, that code started to crack fast. At first it was a line, then a guideline, and eventually, a suggestion. Remember when Dexter started bending the rules just enough to feed his urge? When beyond reasonable doubt became, well, probably guilty? When a dry spell in killing was enough reason to fast-track someone to the table? He stopped following the code and started using it as a prop, as a justification, as a story to keep his conscience and ours quiet. And that's the genius of it. The code didn't just keep Dexter in check, it kept us on his side. It gave us permission to root for him. Because hey, he only kills bad people, right? But deep down, you have to ask, was Harry's code ever a belief system? Or was it a beautifully packaged lie, told to Dexter, by Dexter, so we'd never look too closely at the truth? And if that's true, then what else was he lying about? Next, we have Dexter's iconic internal monologues, that cold, analytical voice dipped in dry wit, and the occasional existential dread. It's part of what made us love him. He didn't just kill, he narrated his darkness with the calm of a golf commentator. But have you really listened? Because if you do, something strange starts to happen. One moment, he insists he's incapable of real emotion. I'm a monster. I fake everything. The next, he's whispering that he might actually love Rita, or Deborah, or Hannah. He says he can't connect, but then he clearly does. Over and over. So which version is real? Here's the catch. Maybe none of them. These weren't confessions. They were rehearsals. Every line of internal dialogue was Dexter practicing how to be believable, how to sound like a man, not a monster. It wasn't for his victims. It wasn't for Miami Metro. It was for us, the audience. His voiceovers weren't just storytelling devices. They were masks. Constructed, tested, revised. He was talking at us while hiding from us. So if even his thoughts were curated performances, how much of Dexter did we ever truly see? And how much did he want us to believe? Remember the old priest with dementia? The one Dexter confessed to? Straight up said, "I'm a serial killer," with the same tone you'd use to admit you cheated on your diet? At first glance, it feels random, reckless, even uncharacteristic. But look closer. It wasn't a mistake. It was the safest possible confession. Dexter knew this man wouldn't remember a thing. No police reports, no panic, no consequences, just a moment of truth, spoken into a void. So why do it? Because deep down, even Dexter, the ultimate lone wolf, was desperate not to carry it alone anymore. This wasn't about moral clarity. It was about relief, a loophole in the code, a moment where he could stop pretending, even if just for 30 seconds. And here's what's chilling. He could have chosen anyone, but he chose someone who couldn't respond, couldn't judge, couldn't stop him. He wanted to be heard without being held accountable. Now ask yourself this. If your darkest truth was eating you alive, wouldn't you look for an escape hatch too? That moment wasn't a slip. It was a controlled leak, a hidden message. Not for justice, not for closure, but because monsters get lonely too. Let's shift focus to the people Dexter let in. Because if his kills were messages, his relationships might have been the loudest ones of all. Lumen, Hannah, Isaac Serco, even Miguel, until things got messy. Dexter wasn't just finding partners, he was testing people. Can you handle the real me? Shockingly, some of them could. Hannah didn't run. Isaac respected him. Vogel basically praised him. Maybe Dexter wasn't hunting for victims. Maybe he was hunting for acceptance. Not to justify the killing, but to stop hiding. These weren't distractions. They were clues. Proof that part of Dexter wanted to be known, really known. And if that's true, these people weren't just side characters. They were answers to a question he never said out loud. Let's be honest. At some point, Dexter stopped trying. He got careless. Blood slides left in drawers. Excuses that didn't even sound convincing. Disappearing at the exact moment someone got murdered. Again, you're telling me a forensic expert didn't realize how obvious that looked? It's almost like he wanted someone to connect the dots. And not just anyone, Deborah. Think about how it all went down. She walks in, sees him mid-kill, and what does he do? Run? Lie? Plead? Nope. Just yes. No panic, no cleanup, no scramble for control, just brutal, quiet honesty. That wasn't a slip-up, that was a statement, a message. And here's where it gets deeper. Out of everyone, Deborah was the one person he never wanted to lie to, but always did. So when the truth finally came out, he didn't resist. He surrendered. Maybe because it felt like a relief. Maybe because, in some twisted way, he trusted her more than he trusted himself. So now you have to ask, was Dexter subconsciously setting it all up, leaving a trail just clear enough for her to follow? Because if so, getting caught wasn't his downfall, it was his confession. Now let's talk about the moment Dexter stopped performing and started confessing without saying a word. No plastic wrap, no kill room, no code. Just Dexter, standing in a police station with a pen in his hand and years of buried fury burning in his eyes. He didn't set a trap. He didn't wait for darkness. He didn't even pretend to care who was watching. In front of Batista, under fluorescent lights and full surveillance, he stabbed Oliver Saxon in the throat, without a single hesitation, without even blinking. And that's when everything changed. Because this wasn't a kill driven by the code. It wasn't about balance or justice or guilt. It wasn't even about Saxon. This was about Dexter, finally showing his real face. The man who once orchestrated his kills with surgical precision, who cleaned every drop of blood and erased every trace, suddenly chose the messiest, loudest possible ending. He knew exactly what he was doing. He could have waited. He could have handled Saxon the way he always did, quietly, cleanly, unseen. But instead, he made it a spectacle. Because this time, the point wasn't to hide the truth. The point was to expose it. This wasn't a murder. This was a message to Batista, to Deborah, to the world, and most of all, to himself. I'm done running. I'm done pretending. This is who I am. And then came Trinity, the mirror Dexter never wanted to look into, but couldn't stop staring at. Dexter's obsession with Trinity wasn't just about stopping another serial killer. It was something far deeper, more unsettling. It was personal, because when Dexter looked at Arthur Mitchell, he didn't just see a murderer. He saw a version of himself, a distorted mirror reflecting the very life Dexter claimed he could never have. A wife, children, church on Sundays. The suburban dream, neatly packaged with a hammer in the basement. But here's the twist. Trinity didn't even pretend to follow a code. He didn't justify his kills. He didn't care about guilt or innocence. He simply followed his own dark pattern. And for Dexter, that was terrifying. Because Trinity proved that it was possible to live a double life without any moral framework at all. No Harry, no code, just chaos behind a perfect smile. So naturally, it shook Dexter to his core. If someone like Trinity could blend in so well while being so completely remorseless, then what did that say about Dexter himself? Was he truly more ethical? Or was that just his story? Was the code his anchor? Or just his excuse? And here's the question that still haunts us. Was Dexter truly different from Trinity? Or was he simply better at performing humanity? Think back to how every season of Dexter ends. We're not talking about neat resolutions or satisfying closure. We're talking chaos, shock, emotional whiplash. Rita's death in the bathtub, brutal and unforgettable. Deborah breaking down as her world collapses. The twisted hope of Harrison's birth, as if Dexter could start over. And of course, the cold, calculated murder of Oliver Saxon in a police station with full cameras rolling. But here's the thing, they never actually resolve anything. Each season finale doesn't tie the story up. It untangles it even further. Instead of closure, we get deeper descent, more moral fog, more inner conflict, more questions about who Dexter really is and whether we still support him. It's almost as if each ending is Dexter leaning into the camera saying, "You think you understand me? Think again." He doesn't just test boundaries within the show. He tests ours too. Our empathy, our tolerance, our justifications, and here's the twist. Every time, we keep watching. So maybe the real message isn't about Dexter at all. Maybe it's about us. Why do we root for a killer? Why are we so quick to rationalize darkness when it wears a human face? And most importantly, what does that say about us? In New Blood, we witnessed something nobody expected. Dexter, who's always had an escape plan, always stayed 10 steps ahead, lets Harrison pull the trigger. No struggle, no manipulation, no pleading for one more chance, just acceptance. He even guides him through it, calm, steady, as if he knew this was how it had to end. But why? Why would a man who spent his entire life hiding his truth suddenly lay it bare for the one person who matters most? Because maybe this was the point all along. Not justice, not survival, not even redemption, but closure. A chance to end the cycle before it consumed Harrison too. To stop the mask from passing on to the next generation. That final look on Dexter's face wasn't fear. It wasn't defeat. It was clarity. In that moment, he wasn't a killer. He was a father. And that bullet? It wasn't punishment. It was a message. The clearest he ever gave. Don't become me. After a lifetime of lies, cover-ups, and double lives. This might be the only honest thing Dexter Morgan ever truly said. And the only act that actually made him human. So, was Dexter leaving us messages all along? Absolutely. They were hidden in blood, in silence, in ritual, in code. They weren't loud. They weren't obvious. But they were there. Maybe he wasn't trying to justify himself. Maybe he was just trying to be understood. The question is, did we ever really want to understand him? Let me know what you think was Dexter's clearest message. Drop it in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.